There you go. Good.
Okay.
Okay, let's start. Well, so we are here with Sue Malcolm. It is the 14th of December, 2020, and Sue has kindly agreed to let me interview her to talk a bit about the early days of the Pacific Bluegrass and Old Time Music Society. That's the current name. Previously it was known as Pacific Bluegrass and Heritage Society, and maybe there was a previous name to that in the early days. So now that I've been involved with the board for about, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years, we recently looked at some of the archives and got some, got a really cool idea of some of the things that used to happen back in the day. Sue's been involved in the bluegrass scene in Vancouver for decades. That's true, I think, right?
Yes.
Without going back specifically, and has lots of knowledge firsthand and otherwise of all kinds of things that happened in the early days of our club. And so I thought it would be fun to hear maybe some stories from those days. So thank you, Sue, for joining me.
Okay.
So the first question, what was the bluegrass scene like in Vancouver when you first got involved?
Well, I was trying to think about that. And, you know, I don't think there actually was a bluegrass scene. There were a few people playing bluegrass, but I certainly wasn't aware of those people. There were like maybe a couple of bands that were playing, and that was as much of a scene as I'm aware of. And I have to say, Eric, it has been coming up to 40 years since the club was formed. Mm-hmm. And so my memories of going back for 40 years may be a little bit fuzzy. So you'll have to excuse me. I can't.
That's okay. We don't need anything, you know, necessarily on the record. Okay. No one's documenting it formally.
Yeah, well, like I said, there was a couple of bands playing that I became aware of. One was a group called Swampgrass. Have you come across any things like by Swampgrass in the archives?
Not yet, but okay, I haven't looked through everything yet.
This was way back before the club was formed. And the kind of leader of the band was a guy named Don Millay, and his brother Leonard Millay. And Don was is a banjo player, and they were originally from Quebec. And they had this band, Swampgrass. They kind of came along once we started up with the jams and stuff. So I don't know how long they had been playing music and how long they were around BC or anything. And they kind of, oh, Paul Norton has just walked in. How timely is this? Look at this.
Wow.
There's a record.
Look at that bluegrass. What is it? Bluegrass or... That's what a great photo.
Bluegrass or Better to Open. And let's see, who's
awesome.
Don and Len, and this bass player, I do not remember his name. Anyway, and I sang on this record
wow.
as a part of a kind of a gospel chorus. But anyway, yeah, these guys were really good. And this was.
Do you know, were they from Vancouver originally, or were they transplants?
From Quebec.
Oh yeah, you said Quebec, right?
And I'm just trying to see if there's a year on this, but no. Yeah, and Don Fraser is on it playing dobro.
Oh wow!
Yeah, Paul Gitlitz on the mandolin, Michael Brooks on mandolin. Oh, Serge Gagné, that's the bass player. Yeah, and then there were a bunch of people in this choir. Myself, Patricia Conroy, who's quite a well-known country music performer, and Alan Wood, who was one of our founding members. So anyway, this was like the first group coming out of the club that actually had a recording. And so anyway, let's see.
And where would they play a group like that in those days?
Soft rock. Oh, actually, there were country bars. There were
Okay.
country bars in Vancouver, mostly like in Surrey, and there were quite a few country bars. And that's where people would play that kind of music.
And were they bluegrass or were they called swamp grass? Or was it sort of a bit bluegrass. Of a high? Oh, okay. But they could play in the country bars, and that was okay.
I think they were kind of a novelty act, because they weren't a country band; they were a bluegrass band.
Yeah,
and they were really good. Now they eventually left town, and I've lost track of them. I don't know where they are. I've tried Googling Don Millay, and I would love to know what he's up to. Anyway, so sort of just backtracking a little bit. I was involved with the Vancouver Folk Song Society, which is an organization still going strong after they're probably been going for about 60 years. And some other people I knew who eventually went on to form the PBHS were part of the Bluegrass, of the Folk Society. So we would go to these events that they had, which would be like open stage and followed by a big instrumental jam afterwards, you know, a big session, mostly playing like Irish music and British and Canadian traditional folk music, except for a few kind of outliers like me who got really interested in old time and bluegrass music. And so they had a few people perform there that were playing that kind of music. One group that just really got me excited was a group called the Gypsy Jippo String Band from Bellingham or Seattle, and headed up by a woman named Sandy Bradley. And they had a long-running radio show on the public radio station in Seattle called Sandy Bradley's Potluck. And you probably know about the Canote Twins, right?
I do, yes.
They were part of that band.
Okay,
and
cool.
This was like high energy old time music. And they just knocked me out. I got really excited when I heard them. And then there was another performer, Kathy Fink, who's a really
we've had her come up and perform.
Yep.
Yeah, she's
amazing. She came and played at the folk club. And also there was a guy that was a local guy named Barry Hall, who is a really incredible banjo player. He's older, he's like my age. And
that sounds familiar, that name.
Yeah, he's kind of a legendary person. At the age of 17, he recorded a solo banjo album for Smithsonian Folkways Records.
Wow.
And he was a little bit like a Tony Trischka kind of guy. He could play classical music on the banjo and old time music and folk music and bluegrass. And he was really, really, really exceptionally talented.
He was based in Seattle?
No, he was a local guy from Vancouver.
Oh, wow.
And now he lives somewhere on Vancouver Island. Another person I've lost track of. So he was in a band that I ended up joining just because I got really excited about bluegrass. They were not really playing bluegrass. They were playing more old time Carter family, old time country music. And as I actually started dating the fiddle player who I married, that's Keith Malcolm, my former husband.
Okay. And I think I've seen him some of the promotional.
Yeah, and we were in a couple of bands together after that. He's a really great fiddle player. And so there were, sorry, there's a cat like going crazy here. So anyway, you know, there's this small bunch of us who were really getting excited about bluegrass. And in the folk society, we were not really warmly appreciated, let's say. And so we actually called our band the Other People. You know, they had their thing, and their thing was British traditional music, a lot of a cappella singing sea shanties and stuff like that. So here we are.
Was there much overlap with the early days of the folk music festival?
Well, now that's a different, that came along afterwards.
Okay.
And I'll get to that.
Okay.
They were not, the people that are involved in the Folk Song Society are not the people that were involved in the folk festival.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, they're really super traditional. They like to have their song circles and keep it really traditional. And they're not interested in the production of events or,
This is the folk music circle you're talking about.
Yes, right.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a different bunch that.
I think I attended an event. Did they used to meet at the Anza Club at one point?
They could have at one point, but
I think I went to one gathering of the folk music circle at the Anza Club, kind of where we've been meeting for years. And it was just bunch of people sitting around, taking turns singing songs and leading them.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it is. And, they're kind of into, like, everyone participates and it's all good. And that's great. It's really good that there's that kind of thing. I mean, we have that too, but they're not really into the performance aspect of things. So anyway, so then co-op radio also has a really big role to play in the history of the club, because Peter Thompson was a guy that was, one of the movers and shakers in co-op radio, along with my husband now, Paul Norton. They both did a number of shows featuring country and bluegrass music. And I don't know what the order of this was, but there was one called Back in the Saddle, and then there was one called Radio Ranch. And that was the predecessor of In the Pines.
Oh, wow.
So Peter Thompson met this guy, Alan Richardson, who was our first president. And I don't know how they met actually, but Alan was a banjo builder, not really much of a player, but he built banjos. And so he was from the States, and he had a lot of experience going to festivals and going to clubs where bluegrass was played and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so he and Peter were talking about, there's some people around here that like bluegrass. Why don't we start a club or get something going? Mm-hmm. So it was because Peter put the word out over on co-op radio that this was happening, and he kind of elicited people to call in or write in or whatever, and find out who was interested in starting a bluegrass club. So through his many announcements about this, there came to be some jamming. And in fact, there was one particular jam that was like the jam, the defining moment, which was a jam on the beach at Kitsilano Beach. And
cool.
So it was in the summer. I don't know what the date was, but he announced that people who were interested in playing or listening to bluegrass should show up at Kitts Beach at this time on this day. And many people showed up.
Wow.
And that was really where it was decided that, yes, we're going to go ahead and start this club.
So this is pre-email, obviously.
Oh,
right?
Yes. So that's why co-op radio was so important.
Yes. So the radio was really the conduit to connect all the people who had this common interest.
Yeah.
Wow.
Other than people phoning each other.
Right.
That would be the other way.
And you were at this momentous
yes,
jam
I
on
was.
the beach?
And I have some pictures of it somewhere too.
Oh, I'd love to see those.
Yeah, I'll have to dig those out for you. Yeah. Yeah, so, that went on and on and on. And there were, how it is at Trout Lake when people come and just hang around and listen.
Yeah.
There were hundreds. I'm remembering in my foggy memory that there were hundreds of people there on the beach listening and cheering and whatnot. It was a big deal.
That's very cool.
Yeah. So then after that, we were searching for a location where we could meet on a regular basis. And we thought we'd like to meet once a week. So somebody there had a connection with the UBC Rugby Club. And the rugby players like to party.
Yes.
In fact, they all have clubhouses. They did back then anyways. I don't know what they do now, but the folk society used to meet after hours at a rugby club, and it was in an illegal bar And and so kind of carrying on that same thing. So the UBC Rugby Club was in the back of a neighborhood pub called Jerry's Cove at 4th and Alma.
Oh yeah.
Remember Jerry's Cove? It's called
now it's just called the Cove.
The Cove, yeah. It was called Jerry's Cove. They had a back room. So we met in the back room of Jerry's Cove. And it was us, the Bluegrass people, and rugby players. They'd come in all covered with mud, and they'd drink beer and listen to us jam. So that went on for a few weeks, I think. And then there was a beer strike.
Oh,
and
no.
the rugby club shut down. I can't remember quite the order of these things, but at some point we had an inaugural board meeting where we, inaugurated the club as a society.
Yeah, and well, I have some file, or we have some of the paperwork from those days.
Okay.
Yeah. So I won't look at it now, but that's cool.
That took place at a restaurant on the corner of Broadway and Alma called the Alma Street Cafe.
I remember that place well.
Right? And they used to have live jazz there. And
yes.
And Paul, my husband, used to own a video store across the street called Video Stop.
Wow.
And so he was kind of around then too. And he was really, and he was on Co-op radio. He was quite instrumental in sponsoring some events. So you see a lot of old posters and whatnot that have the Video Stop logo on them. And that's why.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, we met at the Alma Street Cafe. We had our inaugural board meeting. Alan Richardson was the president the first year. I was the president the second year, and a bunch of other times. And I'm trying to remember. I was trying to remember who all was involved in that. Besides Alan and me, there was Jake DeVilliers. He's still very active in the band Storyhouse.
Okay.
And Peter Thompson and Alan Wood and Michael Brooks, mandolin player who lives in Victoria. And I'm not sure if Don Millay was on the board or not, but he was, there were lots of people around who also helped out, as always, that weren't on the board necessarily. So then anyway, we were looking around for another venue. And this is where we got involved with the Vancouver Folk Music Festival people. Okay. So Gary Crystal at the time was the
artistic director?
The artistic director, the first one. And he was programming music at the Soft Rock Cafe on 4th and Cypress, which was a great, did you ever go there?
Oh yes, many times.
Okay, so it was a great venue because it had a big stage and it was kind of a hippie place, they had all the good food.
I used to go to hear reggae back in the 80s. That's a big reggae fan.
So, traditionally music and theater and whatnot does not happen on Monday nights. So there was a hole there, and Gary was aware that, because he knew Peter Thompson, that we were looking for a place. So he approached our club and asked us if we wanted to have the Monday night. That's how it got to be Monday night.
That's how it all got to be Monday night.
And and in fact, later on at some other point, we tried running it on Friday nights and it was just a bust, because there's too much other stuff going on.
Right. So it's a combination of the availability of the place,
right,
and the lack of other things to do.
Yes. Right. So we went back to Monday night pretty quick. But anyway, that's how we got involved in the soft rock. And the soft rock, that was such a scene with the Bluegrass Club because the excitement was so huge at the time.
Excitement amongst the people involved.
Us, the members, the club members.
Having a place to meet regularly.
Yeah. And a lot of people were kind of like me, like just discovering Bluegrass and discovering the whole scene. And, we'd go there on Monday nights, and it still boggles my mind when I think about it. go there and do whatever we were doing. Usually it was a jam. Sometimes it was an open stage, and then every so often a concert. And then after the thing was over, we would go somewhere else and jam.
Like where?
There were a couple of restaurants. There was some pizza joint on 4th Avenue. I can't remember the name of it, that let us go there and jam until like 2, 3 in the morning on a Monday night. And
wow.
then sometimes if the weather was good, we'd jam in the parking lot outside the Soft Rock. And sometimes we'd go to Vern Tanner's house. Do you remember Vern?
No.
Bass player. And he lived on 5th. He lived in a great big house that was shared with some other people on 5th, really close to the Soft Rock.
Okay.
And he was definitely, you know, the original old hippie, tall, skinny guy. When he died about, I'm thinking maybe 10 years ago. And he did come to the Anza Club quite a bit. And towards the end of his life, when he wasn't in great health, he was famous for kind of lying down in a chair and playing his bass. And anyway, yeah, he was definitely one of a kind of guy. So we'd go to these jams at his place on Monday night after the club and jam sometimes till 4 in the morning.
Wow.
And then I would get up, everybody would get up and go to work the next day. And like, it was because we were so excited about it.
Yeah.
We kept on going.
Well, I don't know about you guys at that time, but I find I've done that, maybe not till 2, but certainly till 12:30 or 1 at the Anza, and it kind of throws my whole week off because you're exhausted on Tuesday morning and then you're behind the whole week. But it's worth it.
It is worth it. At that time, you know, I actually lived in Kitsilano. I was working in North Van at a school in North Van. I had 2 kids who were teenagers at the time.
Wow.
So, like, I had a lot going on.
Wow.
But I was so excited about it all that, yeah, it's crazy, eh?
Well, I don't know how I guess I won't be able to show it right now, but I'm looking at a document, August 26, 1981.
Yeah.
It's the howdy folks, summertime's almost past and gone, and blah blah blah. It talks about the welcome back to the Soft Rock Extravaganza. 4 bands for the price of 1. Wild Rose Construction, the Frosty Mountain String Band.
That was me.
The 11th. That was you.
Yeah.
The 11th Hour Bluegrass Choir.
Oh yeah.
And Swampgrass will each do 1 set.
Wow.
$2 for members. $2 for members.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
And then the next week it said, following week, September 14th, the return of the Blue Ridge Express from Seattle.
Oh yeah, they were great. Fantastic.
And that was an extra $1, so it was $3 for members.
My God.
And then the 21st of September was the first annual general meeting. So yeah, and Alan Richardson, as you said, lots of jamming. So very cool. Yeah, so it's neat to have some of those old documents.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, one of the first things we did at the Soft Rock was build these little jamming rooms backstage.
Wow, they let you do that?
They had a big, well, I mean, you know, they had an empty Monday night, right? Nobody was coming in. And all of a sudden it was packed. So they
everyone's buying booze and wow, great.
So we had a work party, you know, somebody bought sheets of plywood or something, and they built these smallish jamming rooms so that people could, you know, jam in small groups. And we'd have a couple of jams going on in the main room or on the stage, and then other jams going on backstage.
So, I mean, it sounds very similar to what we've been doing at the Anza, but we were always stuck for space, like that little the green room in the back.
Right.
But there's never enough space to have jams.
Yeah, well, the Soft Rock was an incredible place. It really was. Great. Yeah. Yeah, and you know, we've been, I don't know if you're aware of this, but we've been located in we've had other locations besides the Anza Club and the Soft Rock.
So why did it end at the Soft Rock?
That's a good question. I can't remember. Uh-oh. I think my dog needs to go out, but I'm going to have to get my assistant to help. Okay, can you just hold on?
One thing about Zoom jams is the pets and the kids always take precedence.
I know. Okay, I'll be right back. This is set. I'm not taking the dog out. I'm just going to get Paul. Hey, Paul, can you please take the dog, Oscar out? Thank you. Okay, I'm back. You go. Go with Daddy. Go. I'm the one that usually takes them out. Go. And he never barks. He just comes and crawls up on my lap to tell me that he needs to go out.
I'm going to see if there's a way that I can show some of these documents. Maybe I won't be able. Anyway, for those who are watching, I encourage you to look on our website where we'll be posting these documents or some of the documents that date back to this period that we're talking about, and you can look at some of the old posters and
well, I've got something right here.
All that stuff. Okay, let's see.
Okay, this is,
oh yes, that's one of them that we have.
And you know what, I was looking at this and I thought, okay, let's see what the date was for this, and there's actually a typo on this because it says 1988, but Bill Monroe died in 1986.
Oh my goodness, that's funny.
So anyway, yeah, Bill Monroe at the Bluegrass Boys at the Soft Rock. The tickets were $14. And this was a co-pro with, oh no, sorry, this was at the Vancouver East Cultural Center. This was the second time he appeared in Vancouver.
So the first was at the Soft Rock.
Yeah, first was at the Soft Rock, and it was a co-pro with the Folk Festival.
Okay, and the second time.
Both times.
Oh, both times.
Yeah. Great. And then this one's got the Video Stop logo.
Oh yeah, little promo.
And then our club logo. Where is it? Oh, there it is.
Yeah, there's been a few. Yeah, that's the one that I have here.
Yeah, that was the original one, and that came from a carving that was done by a woman named. I can't remember her name at the moment. Oh, Debbie Bryant. A big, huge wood carving, like this big. Wow. And we had it hanging on the wall. And Debbie Bryant,
at the Soft Rock?
Yep.
So they let you keep stuff like that all week, all the time?
We brought it back and forth every week and put it up.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's something that I think has kind of gone missing because it got passed around quite a lot. Yeah. And I don't know where it is at the moment. It was huge. And Debbie Bryant was Don Malay's girlfriend. Okay. And later on, the bass player, Kitty King, who was the bass player in the 11th Hour Band, and now she's in the Little Mountain Trio. She made this incredible fabric backdrop with that logo on it. That we used to have as a stage backdrop.
I wonder where it is.
I don't know where it is. Yeah. Anyways, okay, and I've got another poster here. And this one is from the Soft Rock with an opening act, Swamp Grass.
Yes.
Stanley and the Clinch Mountain Boys.
That's one of the things I was going to ask you about.
Oh, yeah. And yeah, at the Soft Rock, doesn't say the year, but I think it was the same year, 1986. Or no, I think it was before that, 82. Okay. And tickets were $10.
Wow. So once you guys had incorporated and were meeting regularly at the Soft Rock, like you say, and it was this big thing, how did it get to the starting to promote some of these big names at the time?
Well, you know, again, Co-op Radio. Mm-hmm. And we actually, I was a publicist for the club for a long time. And we had the newsletter, of course. And you have to remember, there was no internet, right?
Right. So, no, I know. So you had to, you sent hard copies.
Yeah.
Every month, I
presume. Yeah. made posters. Yeah, we mailed out the
Mailed
newsletter.
everything. Yeah.
We'd have a mailing committee, work party. We made posters. My former husband, Keith, the fiddle player, is a typesetter. So that was kind of handy. He would generate computer generated type. And then I pasted it up on a sheet.
Wow.
Sometimes using Letraset for headlines and stuff. Pasting pictures on paper. And then we get those things printed and put them up all over town. We also used to advertise in the local papers like the Georgia Straight and the Vancouver Sun. And they had listings, free listings that they actually put things in and did articles and the province. We had a bit of a connection with a radio station, JR Country, for a while. And so they would sometimes mention our events. We almost never paid for anything because advertising is very expensive. So we found every possible way that we could spread the word. CBC radio was also very good with stuff like that. So yeah, lots of posters. And one thing that we used to do, and I did this with the Ralph Stanley Band and some other bands, there was a show on CKVU, which is now known as City TV. And I don't remember the name of it, but it happened in the late afternoon around 5 p.m. It was a live kind of a talk show with where they always had segments about what entertainment that was going on in town. And then they would have people come down to the studio and play live on the studio on TV. So I took Ralph Stanley and the Clinch Mountain Boys to the City TV studio and they played live. Then we went back, did a sound check, and they did their show. And I did a number of different people. Yeah. And yeah. Wow. Right.
So back then, where would they stay? Like I know lately in the last number of years, they would stay. One of the people would here in the club would put them up.
Yes.
What would happen when you would have Bill Monroe and Ralph Stanley?
Yeah, big names like that. We were really fortunate at the beginning because through the folk festival, they had a roster of people that would billet entertainers. And these were people that had beautiful Shaughnessy homes and stuff. And they were Bluegrass fans and wanted to support our organization. So I'll get into the Ralph Stanley story. Because I can't remember whether I picked them up at the airport or someone did and took them to this home where they were being billeted and dropped off all their luggage and stuff like that. And they were being billeted in a beautiful Shaughnessy home. And then we all went over to my home in Kitsilano to get ready for this TV spot. But there was quite a few hours to kill there. So Ralph took a nap and the guys in the band watched the World Series on TV.
Yeah.
They were very excited that the timing worked out, that they could watch TV, you know.
Sure.
But they were a little bit panicky because they had lost one piece of luggage. And Ralph kept on asking about this. What do we do about it? You know, and we'd phone the airlines and whatnot, trying to track down this piece of luggage. And we discovered later that the really important thing that was in that piece of luggage was a hairdryer. And we're talking early 80s. And you think about the country and bluegrass people and what they looked like in the early 80s. They had like the big hair, right?
Wow.
So anyways, now I think the guitar player in the band was Junior Blankenship. And he was about 19 at the time.
Wow.
These guys were really, it was so interesting because they were all really young except for, well, no, they weren't all really young. Junior Blankenship was really young. He was 19. And I know Junior is his real name because I did the paperwork for the immigration And it's quite common in the South to name your child Junior. So anyway, that's how I know.
They did it in "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou," but I wasn't sure if
Yeah.
that was a real thing.
Anyway, he came over to me when I was in the kitchen and my daughter was there, and we were, I don't know remember what we were doing, but he said, "Excuse me, ma'am, is there any place a feller could buy some hairspray around here?" And his accent was so heavy, I couldn't even understand what he was saying.
Wow.
And he said, I said, oh, pardon me. And he said, "Hi, Nikki." He said something like, "Hairspray for your hair."
Your hair.
And then he said, that's when he told me that the problem with the luggage was the hair dryer was in the luggage. And they were all too shy to ask me if I had a hair dryer they could borrow. Yeah. Wow. So anyways, my daughter went off with Junior Blankenship, who was looks like a cowboy, right?
Yeah.
And there we are in Kitsilano. Took him down to the Shoppers Drug Mart to buy hairspray.
Now, in those days when a band would come, was it like now where they would, like, it was Monday night and they would be en route to some other place, so that they had a spare night in their tour, or did they come here specifically? Do you remember that?
No, they
just
pretty
for that
much. I mean, there would be sometimes they would they'd be doing a West Coast tour.
Okay.
Right.
It would be part of a tour.
Yeah, and Vancouver would be like their last stop because it's so far anywhere.
Yeah.
To go to anywhere.
So would they go to
Canada.
would they go to Edmonton, Calgary, those kind of places, Seattle, or smaller places even?
But no, they didn't.
No.
At that time.
Okay.
Yeah, I wish I remembered how much we paid them. That would be.
Yeah, that would be.
Find that in there. It would be really
probably interesting.
Yeah.
So once they did the TV spot, and I guess was that all considered to be part of the fee, right? Like that was promo for the gig that night?
Yeah, it was because the TV station didn't pay anybody for that.
No. But it probably helped get people to come to the show. Oh, of course.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So that, that was a pretty fun 2 days they were in town. They stayed at their billet place, and I think they might have had two different homes that they were billeted in, and then they wanted a tour of Vancouver. Sure. I don't know why they were able to be here for 2 days, but they were. So I took them around. I went picked them up in the morning. We went downtown. I remember we had breakfast at Denny's on Burrard Street. That was their choice. And then we went to Stanley Park. I thought it would be cool for Ralph to know that there was a park named Stanley Park.
Sure, that's right.
And he was pretty impressed with it. They were all pretty impressed with it. We drove around Stanley Park, and then we drove up up Cypress.
Oh, wow. Out to that lookout?
Yeah, but unfortunately it was a really foggy day. So it wasn't the best view, but they were just knocked out by Vancouver. They wanted to go everywhere, but they didn't have time. But, still.
That's so great.
It was fun hanging out with those guys.
And do you know if they ever came back after that?
I'm not aware of them.
No.
I mean, our club didn't bring them back, and I don't think anyone else did.
Wow.
Yeah.
What about any stories around when Bill Monroe the first time came to the Soft Rock?
Well, he did 2 shows that night, 2 separate shows.
Okay.
And, I have to say that was the first time I had ever really seen a real hardcore bluegrass band. And I was completely knocked out. I was maybe sitting in the second row, and, they came on, and it was just like a blast of sound coming off the stage. Do
you recall who was in the band at that time?
I don't, and that's.
I can go back and I can
Google it,
because you can Google who was in his band in 1982.
Yeah. I mean, I can kind of picture them. Mark Embry, I think, was a guitar player and lead singer, and Kenny Baker was with him.
Kenny Baker was
incredible.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Man, I was around. I was just in high school. I
Yeah.
was in high school. If I'd only
Yeah.
known. And
Oh
I went to the
gosh.
soft rock.
Yeah.
I went on the reggae nights instead of the bluegrass
Wow.
nights.
Oscar, what's going on? Oscar's trying to crawl up into my lap again. I wrote down a few names of other groups that played at the Soft Rock. Now the Bluegrass Cardinals, I don't think they played at the Soft Rock. I think we were at the Odd Fellows Hall for one season.
Oh yes, I know where that is.
And
that was a regular meeting place for the club?
Yeah, for at least one year. But Norman and Nancy Blake were incredible. They had a Norman Blake,
yes,
incredible guitar player, and his wife Nancy plays the cello, and they had a bass player with them. The David Grisman Quintet, they were awesome. Wow. They did workshops in people's homes before the show. And then Frank Wakefield.
Oh, wow.
Familiar with him?
Yes,
Crazy.
I am.
Totally crazy. I actually hung out with him and his partner for quite a while.
Yeah, I've heard a few stories about him.
He is crazy. And the Newgrass Revival were really awesome with Sam Bush and Bella.
Yes.
Flack.
So they were here too.
Oh yeah.
And our club put them up.
At the Soft Rock.
Or our club promoted them at the Soft Rock.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. A band that came every year for a long time is the Good Old Persons. And
okay, that was from Seattle?
Catholic.
Yeah,
They're from the Bay Area.
Oh, okay.
Catholic. Laurie Lewis was in the band at the time. Laurie Lewis had another band. We also brought them in. And Paul Shalasky on the fiddle, and John Reichman. And Beth Weil was the bass player. And actually, Peter Thompson, who I mentioned earlier, got together with Kathy Kallick, and they got married, and he moved down to the Oakland.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was that
connection.
That's
how John Reichman met his wife Gwendolyn, was all these, like they used to come to Vancouver to play for every year for years.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a cool connection.
Dating.
And in this period, so all these concerts, were the jams growing? People coming on Monday nights, was that getting bigger and more popular?
Oh, yeah. And I'm not sure what the membership was at that time, but it was there were times when we had a lot of members, like 500 members or so. Yeah,
well, I can see from the rosters, we have the actual rosters. Somebody every year would hand copy, like in January, they'd manually copy all the members on this ledger paper for the year, and then they tick them off when they showed up at the jams. And then the new year, then they do it again with a new list. So interesting. Yeah, hundreds of people.
Now some of the other places that we actually had our regular meeting places were with the Odd Fellows Hall and the Glass Slipper.
Oh, the Glass Slipper.
Yeah, did you ever
I live nearby there, and actually I live nearby there still, or where it used to be, and that was one of my favorite places to go. What a wonderful venue. It was so sad when it burned down.
Yeah.
I used to volunteer in the bar there.
Oh, yeah.
But not on the bluegrass nights.
Yeah. Well, it was really good for bluegrass, as I'm sure you can imagine, because of the acoustics in there and the way it was set up.
Yeah.
And the downstairs in the basement, we used to have workshops down there. I remember giving workshops there myself and other people. There would be, just like one person giving a workshop on some. Yeah. Obscure.
When did you start with the slow pitch jam?
Oh, well, let's see. That was around 1995. And we actually started it at Sorrento.
Okay.
And
was it just happened spontaneously, or was it sort of a well-planned thing?
It kind of grew, both. It happened spontaneously, but it grew. It started out at the beginning of the week, a bluegrass camp. And when it used to be called the BC Bluegrass Workshop, and Jay Buchwald was the head of it. And, I was teaching there. I was teaching something like beginner guitar, and Bob Underhill was teaching there too. And we played in a band together, Bob and I. And we had been sort of helping people informally at the Anza Club, just, now and then, nothing formal.
So there wasn't any formal beginner jam or anything like that? Okay.
No. So Jay, on the first day of Bluegrass Camp, he asked me if Bob and I would host a beginner jam. And if you've been to Sorrento, you know where the photocopy room is, downstairs in the Richardson building. He said that's what's going to be there after dinner. And he made an announcement to everybody that there was going to be a slow pitch jam there after dinner. And so
did he coin the phrase slow pitch?
Actually, no. I heard it many years before at the Puget Sound Guitar Workshop in Washington, where I went for many years. But Jay also went there for many years. So he, it's a term that's been around for a long time.
Okay.
So anyway, we were in there waiting for people, and people started coming in, and they just kept on coming. And there were so many people in there.
Wow.
That, it got really hot, and nobody could hear anybody. And okay, so then I launched into teacher mode, and because I have a background in special education. So I just stood up on a chair. So got everybody to be quiet. And just right there on the spot, I thought, okay, everybody who's playing the same instrument, just get together in sections, because there's no way, there were, probably close to 100 people in that room. There would be no way it would work otherwise.
No.
And then, so we had a great time. And then the next day, Jay said, okay, that's it. You're moving over into the Caritas room.
Upgrade.
And we had we did have 100 people every night that week. And so, Bob and I talked, and I said, we ought to do this back at the Anza Club. And that's kind of basically how it started.
So were there people asking for that prior to that? Like, did you have a feedback at the time?
No, not
saying,
really.
no, not really. I guess there may not have been a vehicle for that.
Yeah,
kind of
it was
feedback.
very, very, very informal. Could you show me how to do that? Or, I don't know any songs. Can you give me the words to that song? And how it used to be to learn songs back before the technology was available.
Yeah, you had to buy the book, or you had
the
to
record player and put the needle down and play that phrase over and over again. So yeah.
Wow. So that was a real niche that you found.
It was
that you could fill.
It just happened by accident. I had no conscious plan to do that, but it just seemed like people loved it so much that I just kept on doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, do you know about the Granville Island Bluegrass Festival?
I don't know much in terms of detail, but I remember seeing the sign under the bridge as you drove into Granville Island.
Yeah.
And that's when I was just getting into bluegrass. And by the time I
really
kind of knew more about it, it suddenly disappeared. Yeah. And I recall being quite upset that it wasn't happening anymore, but I don't know the history.
Well, again, this is a Jay Buchwald thing. Mm-hmm. Jay is a visionary, and he knows how to make things happen.
Yes.
And and I don't remember the exact years. I was just talking to Paul about that, because Paul was the coordinator for 3 years. But,
of the Bluegrass Festival? Yeah. How long did it go on?
Well, it went on, we think it went on for about 5 or 6 years. And Jay, at one point, the IBMA declared that the month of May was International Bluegrass Music Month. And Jay said, hey, this is happening. Why don't we do something to promote our club during the month of May?
It's a good month in Vancouver, too.
Yeah. And so Granville Island it's changed a lot, but when it was first developed, one of their missions was to promote the arts.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a lot of things, a lot of performance things going on. They had the Children's Festival, did things as an outreach. You know, the Children's Festival used to be in a different place, and they'd have outreach programs, and they'd have, you know, every festival in town would have some kind of outreach thing at Granville Island. And, you know, it was a perfect place for performance.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So Jay negotiated with the people there, and CMHC were heavily involved in it. And so we actually we got funding from CMHC.
That's great.
To actually pay bands to come and play. And they had a stage set up at the back on the north side where there's lots of public seating there. I have pictures here, actually.
Oh.
Here's the picture that you have, the sign that you've seen. The can you see?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
And you know, that was a big deal, getting that banner up there.
That's a huge deal.
CMHC had to, you know, they have people there that do that stuff. So here's a picture of the stage and the kind of crowd.
Wow.
We got huge crowds there. The whole place was packed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And so we brought in bands from the US and from, you know, around BC. And we had local bands, all the local bands played. And we had programming every weekend, Saturday and Sunday throughout May for however many years it was.
Wow.
And then we also had, those were all free shows, but we also had ticketed shows at Performance Works.
Yes.
I remember seeing Hazel Dickens there.
Wow.
And with an incredible band. And yeah, I can't really remember all the bands that played there, but you know I played there every time.
Is this during the period when the group was jamming at the Soft Rock, or was this later?
No, it was after that.
After that.
It was actually the last one, I think, was 1993.
So were we at the Anza Club at that point already?
Yes.
Okay.
And we had a big a table inside the market, a big information table. Got lots of new members, and we had huge jams going on. When the stage shows weren't happening, there were huge jams everywhere.
Wow, that must have been fantastic.
It was really incredible. And, you know, fully funded by CMHC. Yeah. And, you know, so we were able to we hired Paul to be the coordinator and publicist. And we had sound crews and, you know, you name it. It was a real good festival.
Who are some other acts that you remember? So big ticket, you know, acts.
I'm looking at, I have this book here from 1993, and it was a band called Sockeye from Washington State, who were really good. And there was one called Sam Hill. They were from Colorado, maybe. Let's see, Chris Stewart and Backcountry. Do you know them? Chris Stewart is a great singer-songwriter, and Janet Beasley is his partner, banjo player, and Eric Uglum, Paul Shalasky. They taught at Sorrento a lot. And yeah, so they played there. I think John Reichman and the Jaybirds played there.
Did you ever have that band that Craig Korth was in back in the day? I think when they got some notoriety. I don't recall the name of the band.
Yeah, I think so. We did.
Yeah, and then there was a band. What was it called? Tumbleweeds.
Tumbleweed. Yeah, that was
Chris Stevens.
And yeah, they played at that festival, and they played the Anza Club.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And so how I always wondered.
So the reason why it ended was CMHC discontinued their funding. And so, yeah, which was really sad because, yeah, you know, things have changed there now. They don't have all that kind of entertainment.
It's mostly buskers now.
Yeah. Yeah. It was really great for Granville Island.
Yeah. Well, people often mention to us, you know, at the AGM, oh, you know, what about putting on another festival?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a huge amount of work, and without the funding, it would be even more work.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you know, I mean, at the Chilliwack Festival was a really important thing for us.
Yeah.
And we always had a presence there, and lots of our bands played there, and I did the Slow Pitch Jam many times there. And when that fell through, when that ended, again, funding. Yeah, it left a huge hole in the scene. And yeah, putting on a festival is a big deal.
Yeah. Well, in some ways, I think our club still benefits from those years. You know, we have not just the legacy, but the people, and I think we even may have some of the money that we have been able to save.
That's true.
I think comes from that time, because you know, we kind of operate on a break-even basis now.
Yeah.
But we have some money in the account, which is allowing us right now to you know, put on this programming and operate at a loss.
Yeah. Well, that's
during
so
COVID.
Fortunate. Yeah.
So that's really nice that, and we, you know, we don't have to worry about, you know, we bring in bands now, and we don't always worry about if we're going to break even, because in the end, our mission is to promote the music and support the artists. And if we lose a bit of money once in a while, then that's fine. So it's great that we, you know, it's kind of the legacy of those days in a way.
We're in a very fortunate position as an arts organization. And you're right, I think we do have a good reputation among, you know, bluegrass performers all over.
Really?
Oh yeah, you know, they used to, they were practically beating down the door, you know, to come and play for us, because people from the States mostly would come and play, and then they'd go home and tell their friends, you should go there. Vancouver's really nice. These people are good.
That's really good to know.
Yeah.
That's good to know. Well, once we get back to the normal life again, hopefully. Actually, speaking of the different places that the club has been using to jam, you know, the Soft Rock and the Oddfellows Hall and other places, we're hoping we can get back to the Anza.
I hope so.
You know, we don't have any date about when that might be. It's not going to be anytime soon, I don't think, but hopefully they do own that building. So they're not going to have to close. So I would love to get back there and, you know, get these concerts back again and make some new stories.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope that's going to happen. I mean, I don't know. Do you know if they're even open for their members right now?
They were, but now lately, there was a time when they were. Yeah. Well, Sue, it's been about an hour, so we have a jam tonight, actually. So
I know. I'm
get ready for that. Oh, yay! Thank you so much. I feel like we just scratched the surface in a way. I mean, it might be fun to look at some of the artifacts from the archives and sort of, you know, learn about. I'm looking at one now. It's called the Kitchen Syncopators.
Oh, that was me. I was in that band.
I know. I see your picture.
I wasn't originally in the band, but I joined them later.
So it might be fun to use those
as
a bit of just as a starting point to talk about some of those.
There's one little thing about that I want to tell you, just in closing. We did this production at the Soft Rock one time, and it was the Kitchen Syncopators, and that was before I was in the band. So it was Rosemary Campbell and Don Fraser and Owen Mahoney, and then the Frosty Mountain String Band, the band that I was in, and Alan Richardson was the MC, and we did it like reenacting an old radio show.
Oh, that's
something
fun.
Like the Prairie Home Companion kind of thing. And so they played some like swing music, and we played old time music, and then we did some stuff together. And it was all scripted, you know, and it was really fun.
That would be fun. And then did you have any like little comedy in between or anything like that?
No, not really, but you could.
You could do that.
That was Alan's thing. He did tell jokes. Yeah. Anyways, that's
really cool.
Fun. Yeah.
Good. Well, thank you so much for
welcome.
sharing. We really appreciate it. And your experience is such a great storehouse store for the heritage of the club.
Thanks.
So thank you again. And for those watching, thanks for watching. And we'll hopefully do this again.
Okay. We'll probably see you later tonight.
Okay. Take care, Sue.
Take care.
Thanks everybody for watching. Bye.
Bye.